Hello and welcome to the Center for Spiritually Integrated Arts, a Centers for Spiritual Living teaching center. I am Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. I am the founder and the spiritual director. Now, as you are sitting there joining us, you may have questions, any number of questions, such as, who am I? How did I get here? Spiritually integrated arts means what exactly? What is a teaching center? Well, what is Centers for Spiritual Living? What is that? What does that even mean? Or New Thought, or religious science, or science of mind and spirit? You may have any number of questions about this specific community, about the parent organization, CSL, our philosophy, our teaching, our liberation theology. Any number of questions. Feel free to send an email. We look forward to connecting more and building our virtual community, our global community. And if you haven't connected yet on social media, feel free to do so. This is your invitation now. Also, did you know that all of our Sunday messages are archived on our YouTube channel? You can watch it anytime. Now, questions about anything, such as becoming a member. What does that mean? What does membership entail? And if you live somewhere far and already belong to a spiritual community, can you be a member of more than one? The simple answer is yes, you can. Just like you can shop at more than one grocery store, you can attend or be a member of more than one gym. We are building beloved community. So you can do both. You can be a member of both. You can be involved with both. That's what being in spiritual community means. So we welcome you. We invite you. We are so appreciative that you have found this community and that you have joined us today. We bless you. We love you. We welcome you. Live long and prosper. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of our Sunday message. Love you. Connect with you soon. Blessings. Namaste and greetings as we close out the month Radical Interconnection. Today we are talking about letting go. There's a topic that a lot of us don't like, but letting go in order to step into a new way of being together. The seeds of awakening and love are in all people and all species on earth. With a spiritual dimension in our lives, we can live deeply in every moment. And with that energy, we can take action to protect the planet and all nature and all living beings. In order to do so, we must let go of our rugged individualism and our addiction to separation, our addiction to grudges, our addiction to resentment. And we let it go, we release it in order to learn and to practice a new way of being one and belonging to each other as one. You say, what now? Separation. So pause for a moment and let's think about how many different ways do we as humans create separation? How many different ways do we separate ourselves from something or someone? Any number of ways. We classify one thing as another, and simply identifying something as one is a black pen, one is a red pen, that's neither here nor there. But the moment I then put a judgment on, this person has skin that is brown, this person has skin that is of another, but that means this one is less than and that one is more than. And when we create these separations that then cause harm, therein lies the problem, because we cannot be one when we do that. And that brokenness creates greater harm. It's almost like we're Peter Pan, who is separate at one point from his shadow. We act like there are two separate things versus understanding that if there's a shadow, then there is the thing that is casting the shadow, and that they are connected. Even if they're not directly connected. Like if this woman was to jump in the air, she's still going to cast a shadow, but that shadow is still connected to the body that is blocking the light that is casting the shadow. The connection is always there. And various spiritual traditions and paths have indicated this, whether it's the Tibetan knot, the endless knot, internal, infinite and eternal connection, whether it is yin yang, infinite and eternal connection. That's why it's less effective or less accurate to say yin and yang versus yin yang. It's one and the same. They are one eternal movement of energy, no separation. And yet, when we're living and moving and having our beingness in this thing called life, we try to act like separation is real. But we have all kinds of evidence that shows how intimately we are connected. Whether it's power lines or telephone lines, we're connected. Whether it's radio waves and radios, we're connected. Whether it's pipes to send gas or pipes to send water from a facility where the water is coming from to the homes where the water is going to, connected. Bridges that span a valley, a chasm, an ocean, a river to connect land masses. Connection is all around us. The ability for me to be where I am right now, speaking to you through this electronic medium, connection. We cannot ultimately be disconnected from one another, from life, from God, from spirit. Connection, as Brene Brown, connection gives purpose and meaning to our lives. And when we understand that this ultimate connection is God as the connectivity of all that is, because God is all there is, then we embody this concept of connection differently. And my connection to you, what does that mean? What is the purpose? What does it show up as? Rather than just words where we talk about being connected, being included, being in relationship, being whatever. What does it really mean? As Dr. Holmes says, what it ultimately means is that we, living creatures, what we want truly is love and belonging. And what comes with that: nurturing, support, safety. That's what we ultimately want. And so, this concept of connection, how is our relationship? How is our connection to whatever we're connected to? Our connection to politics, how is it creating love and belonging? Our connection to religion, theology, or spirituality, how is it offering and creating space for more love and belonging for a world that works for all? How is it actively creating? What is the meaning of? Dr. Holmes goes on to say, love overcomes both hate and fear. However, love does not overcome hate and fear through controversy, through argument, or force, but rather by a subtle power of transformation, transmutation, and sublimation. It is invisible in its essence, but apparent through its act. Just as light overcomes darkness, as the presence of heat causes the coolness of a room to change until the room then is warm and comfortable, so too is this radiant action of love and peace that dissipates fear, hate, and confusion. What is your connection to love? What is your connection to hate, to fear? What is your connection to transformation? What is the meaning of these things in your life? Are there times when, let's really ask, are there times when argument doesn't mean what Dr. Holmes is meaning right here? Because oftentimes we get trapped in the words and the languaging of, we're not supposed to argue. But is there not a space for, because in a courtroom, are the two sides not arguing their point, their position? And should they not argue their point or position? If I want to, talk to my parents and convince them or encourage them to let me go off to college, wherever it is I want to go, I'm presenting an argument. I am presenting my case. I am presenting my position and the meaning of such. So when we use the word, let's really be mindful of using it in life-affirming ways where we understand what it really means in ways that foster greater love, greater belonging, greater connection, greater healing. So yes, that's our invitation, because people such as Daryl Davis, and I encourage you to go watch this video. How does this man have conversation with members of the Klan in ways that they then transform their beliefs and their paradigms and they relinquish their affiliation, their connection, their ideology as Klansmen. How do you do this? He doesn't do it through controversy, through argument, through force. He does it through love, through compassion, through intelligent and compassionate conversation. He does it through connection. Because the moment he gets these men to recognize we are connected, whether you believe it or not, but let me present the evidence. And upon presenting the evidence, they then, oh, wait a minute, wait. So if that is in fact true, then what? And their whole paradigm shifts as a result. Are we not necessarily doing this exact work, but are we doing this work in the other ways that we show up in our lives and our relationships? Love overlooks the little differences that we have, and love finds a point of reconciliation with others. Love creates tolerance and human understanding, without which we become really divided against ourselves, and without which we almost unconsciously become filled with criticism, condemnation, and false judgment. No one can be happy or enjoy the greatest fulfillment in life until this person has come to see that most people try to do the best they can. And when we are able to reach out beyond our indifferences, beyond the coldness of life, and we are able to reach through all intolerance, reach through all unkindness, only then do we meet the divine center, which is forever established within each and every person. Are we embodying love to that degree? Let's remix. Love sees beyond the little differences that we have and recognizes oneness at the point of healing and reconciliation with others. To love is to accept. This acceptance creates greater understanding, unifying us in ways void of criticism, condemnation, and false judgment. No one can be happy or enjoy the greatest fulfillment in life until they have come to understand that people are in fact trying to do their best. Pause. For example, the Klansmen, in their mind where they are, they believe what they're doing is for the best. That's what they believe. Until such time as they realize that that belief is in fact rooted in something that is non-life affirming, to which they then relinquish an old belief, condemnation, false judgment. They relinquish that in favor of a love that sees beyond the differences and recognizes oneness. And when we reach out and meet each person with compassion, understanding, and healing as our consciousness, then we recognize that divine center, which is forever established as every person. Are we embodying that? Because once again, to do so can be difficult. It's simple to say, not so easy to do, but are we willing to do it nonetheless? Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us that Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, his enlightenment didn't stop him from being human. After his enlightenment, he was still a human being with all the suffering and afflictions that having a human body entails. Enlightenment didn't prevent him from feeling the vast variety of feelings and emotions, didn't stop him from feeling pain or cold or hunger or fatigue that all of us experience. So from his teachings, however, we know he suffered. But the key point is he knew how to suffer. His awakening came from suffering. He knew how to make good use of his afflictions in order to experience awakening. Now, pause. Because oftentimes we jump into this idea that says we are supposed to suffer, we have to suffer in order to awaken. No. This is inviting us to say that when suffering happens, we do not have to suffer for the sake of suffering, but that we can transform the suffering into something greater. We can transform the toxin, the venom, into anti-venom. It is not saying, oh yes, run out, get bit by snakes, get bit by poisonous spiders, for that is the way of life. It is saying that if you are adventuring out in the desert and if you get bitten by a snake, here's the anti-venom. Suffering is not the way, but when suffering occurs, there is a way through it. So this idea, this concept of enlightenment, oftentimes we think enlightenment is the of life. That once we are enlightened, all of the separation and all of the pain and the angst and the goes away, and we are no longer, we become something beyond human. We become superhuman, or we become, I don't know, we become so spiritually minded that we will never hunger again and we will never be cold or never. No, that's not what it means to be human. That's not what it means to experience this thing called life. So enlightenment is not about avoiding our humanity. Enlightenment is actually about embracing it and understanding that what it is, enlightenment actually allows us and enables us to embody and to express our humanity more fully. So when you're sad, grieving, embrace it. Understand why it is showing up. Don't be sad for the sake of sad. Don't grieve for the sake of grieve. Don't anger for the sake of anger. But identify, I feel this thing that I am calling anger. But what is causing it? What is at the root of the consciousness that is stirring this feeling to show up? Is it fear? Is it like what's at the foundation of that is causing this emotion to spring forth? Enlightenment gives us the space to be more fully human, not to escape our humanity. Homo conscious is a new way of being in the world. We can all contribute to helping Homo conscious, the species that embodies mindfulness, the species that embodies compassion, the species that embodies enlightenment. We can contribute to Homo conscious. We can develop and continue this in the world now and for. With a spiritual practice, we will be able to adapt. We will be able to not only, he says, survive, but we will also be able to thrive. There needs to be a kind of gentle revolution in each of us. And once we've started a revolution in our own consciousness, it will bring radical change, radical interconnection to our family, our relationships, our community, to the world. But first, we must be determined to change our way of living. And we change our way of living by changing all four pillars of our mental equivalence. Are we willing to do this? Are we willing to no longer be simply Homo sapien, but become Homo conscious sapien? Are we willing to become a new species that embodies a world that works for all? Or are we content with knocking our heads against the brick wall of all the things we talked about last week? Self-hatred, hatred, fear, the things we talked about today, the various separations, the reasons we separate, all of these little differences that we turn into great differences that become wars and violence. Are we willing to become a new way of being? Are we willing to embody the cure, the true cure? Now, last week, what was the cure? Oneness. And that's still the cure. But for this particular conversation, the cure is to love ourselves. The Buddha said at one point that if we truly loved ourselves, we would never harm anyone. You remember this from last week? Because if we harm another, it is in some way diminishing who we are. It is taking away rather than adding to our lives. Now, I want to remix this a bit. Because the cure is, if we truly loved ourselves, we would support, care for, be with, heal one another. Because when we love ourselves, we can't help but to love another in ways that in some way enhance and deepen who we are. And in this way, we are adding to all of our lives. That's the cure. How are we adding to the quality of bringing love, compassion, caring, belonging to others? The cure is community and relationships. It is bringing all that is healthy and well and safe and life affirming to all of our interactions with ourselves and our interactions with one another and our interactions with the world. Because the way that we treat the trees in the Amazon jungle and just chop them down for money is also how we are taking away from life rather than adding to life. So how do we also bring this love, this support, this caring, this belonging to nature as well? So rather than removing entire ecosystems, how do we nurture and support the ecosystems, knowing that those ecosystems, though are not the necessary ecosystems we live in, support ours and ours support theirs? Because if we continue to wipe out species of bees and other animals, then in fact we are dooming ourselves. Because the end result is our own extinction. So once again, the cure is, how are we adding to life? How are we adding to the quality of life for one another? When you love someone, you have to offer that person the best you have. The best thing we can offer another person is our true presence. Be with one another fully. That's the cure. How present are you with yourself? Do you listen to yourself? Do you listen to the ways that your body is communicating to you? Do you listen to your beloved, your friends, your family, your children, your partner, do you listen? Are you present with? Because that presence adds to. This is a new way of being. Being present with one another, to one another, homo conscious. What did we say last week? Nikki Giovanni, if you don't understand yourself, you don't understand anybody else. Well, let's remix this once again. If you aren't connected authentically to yourself or yourself, capital S self, then you can't fully connect with anybody else. In other words, if you are not connected with yourself and knowing that yourself is that which God is, if you're not fully, truly, authentically connected in that way, then you cannot fully connect with anybody or anything else, because you're going to see that person as a separate being, as a broken being, as a sinful being, as a whatever being. You're in the clan. I don't have anything to do with you. Where's the connection? I'm better than them. I'm smarter than them. I'm something other than them. Versus, the more consciously and authentically I am connected to myself as me, and the me that is the divine incarnating as me, then the more I am going to be able to recognize that that same being, that same self, is the self that is incarnating as them. And in that, there is connection. In that, there is transformation. In that, there is a new way of being, homo conscious. But let's pause for a moment, because there are a lot of us that like the rugged individualism. There are a lot of us that like the concept of forging it alone, that solitude, that stoic idea of, I can only rely on myself. I can only trust on myself. I can only, me. If I want to get it done, I've got to do it myself. If I want to get it done right, I've got to do it myself. People let me down. So when I need help, it's me. I'm not asking for help, because then they disappoint me. There are a lot of us that actually are addicted to and enjoy this way of being. But this way of being is separation. This way of being is brokenness. This way of being is not going to create a world that works for all. It is not going to heal. So sit in that for a moment and identify if that is you. No judgment, no criticism, but recognizing that if you want to be in this new way of being, then as Brene Brown says, authenticity is the daily practice of letting go who we think we are supposed to be in order to embrace who we are and who we are choosing to be. This is a new way of being. Being authentic as a daily practice. Let go of who you think you're supposed to be. Let go of who others told you you're supposed to be, and truly embrace who you are and who you are choosing to be. You are loved just for being who you are, just for existing. You don't have to do anything to earn it. Your shortcomings, your lack of self-esteem, physical perfection, social and economic success, none of that matters when it comes to your being loved. No one can take this love away from you, and it will always be there, because this love is what God is. And the more we step into the space of knowing our interconnectedness, the more we step into the homo conscious way of being as a new way of being, the more we bring love and belonging and presence to everyone. And then this whole paradigm of, I need to earn love, it's removed. The cure has removed and replaced the illness, the dis-ease, the addiction. And in place is, I know I am loved. I know who and what I am. And then, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, if you love somebody, but rarely make yourself available to them, that's not true love. So when we bring the cure, when we understand our inherent worth and value and that nothing impacts it, then we understand, right? And in that understanding, we're going to switch this because we understand that the new way of being says, because I love myself and because I love others, I make myself available to them. And that is true love. I bring my presence to all my relationships. I bring my mindfulness of this presence to all of my interactions, all of my conversations. Tracy and I, we do our best when we are having dinner. What'd you say? Oh, no phones. No, unless it's an emergency, no texting, no scrolling, no social media-ing, no videos. Be present. And there are times when we say, you know, we're not even going to do TV while we eat. We're just going to eat and converse. We're going to eat and be present, even if it's in the silence. We simply are present with one another. Yes, there are times that we'll eat and we'll go into the living room and we'll eat and watch television. Yes, that sometimes happens. But even then, we are still being present because while we're eating, we're conversing, we're observing what's on the television, and sometimes it's pause and we'll converse about what we just saw, what we just heard. So even then, there's still the element of how can we make ourselves available to one another? When you ask someone, how are you today? Do you actually listen? Do you want to know? Are you present to them so that if they're not feeling very well, you're present without needing to heal them or advise them, but be present? Good friends, companions, and associates are the whole of spiritual life. You said, what now? This is connection. Good friends, connection. Companions, connection. Associates, connection. Relationships are the whole of spiritual life. Relationships, how we relate to self and others and all, is the whole of spiritual life. Community is spiritual life. How we show up in community, how we show up in connection, how we show up in relationship, that is the whole of spiritual life. Nobody cares that you are an excellent meditator, that your prayers are, oh my goodness, if it's not benefiting, if it's not adding to the health and well-being of others. How many ministers have we ever heard of, oh, the sermon was great, but behind closed doors, they're abusing their wife, their children, or the altar boys? Doesn't matter how great you are here. If your greatness, your divinity, your isn't benefiting the community, your relationships, and all with presence, compassion, love, safety, and belonging. Doesn't matter what you do or in the quiet of your, I'm walking down the street by myself. Okay, cool. You know, having alone time and solitude, great. But the moment it becomes isolation and you are segregating yourself or attempting to segregate yourself from others, then you're missing the point of what spiritual living actually means. You are missing the point of what it means to be homoconscious, because this new way of being places relationship right up there with meditation, places community right up there with prayer. They are all spiritual practice. So asking, checking in, what are our mental equivalents as it relates to community, connection, and relationships? And how are we engaging and embodying from that space of awareness. Breathe. The Science of Mind and Spirit 4.0 offers us a new way of being in the world and a new way of relating to the divine as it incarnates as us and as everyone. This new way is the way of active, conscious social transformation. We work together for the good of all because we understand that there is only God. And so we all help one another because it's God helping God. We all heal because we understand that it's God healing God. We all love because we understand that it's God loving God. We are all present because we understand that it's God presenting and being present to itself. This new way of being, this new way of taking the Good Samaritan and hyping it up on like cosmic steroids is what we are invited to do. Amplifying the practice of what it means to not simply be our brother's keeper or our sister's keeper or our gender fluid, gender rich, non-binary siblings keeper. Rather than that, we understand that we are them and they are us. And there is only one. Breathe. This week's affirmation or declaration, I will say it first. And if it resonates with you, I invite you to say it with me the second time around. I am, typo, I am committed to being awake, alive, and aware in each interaction and relationship and at each moment of my life. Woo, sometimes the typos just, woo, breathe, no judgment. Together, I am committed to being awake, alive, and aware in each interaction and relationship and at each moment of my life. And so it is. This week's Thursday night study questions or your own personal journal questions. Number 1, where or when do I act as if I have to go it alone? When has my mantra been, if I want it done, right, or at all, I have to be the one to do it? Number 2, where, when have I othered people in non-life affirming ways? When have I othered myself in non-life affirming ways? Who do I resent? What grudges do I hold? Who or what have I refused to forgive? What connections, relationships can I build and or strengthen? And lastly, what does homo conscious, a new way of being, mean for me? What do I need to let go of in order to embody my new way of being? Breathe. And we enter into that space of the infinite awareness, knowing that God being all there is, it must be connected to itself. In fact, God is being all there is. God can't even be connected to itself, being all that there is. In the same way that looking at the air in front of my face, is the air connected to the air? No, there is simply the air. It's all there is. And so knowing that God being all there isn't even a connection for God to be with God. So we use it for linguistic convenience, but ultimately there is simply God. There is simply the presence. There is simply the oneness. And so even when I say I am being connected to, we are being connected to, I know that back of that, and back of that, at the infinite truth of it is, there is only one. There is only one. Infinite oneness, eternal consciousness, love, belonging to itself in such a way that even the belonging fades into simply itself. So I breathe, recognizing the both and of all of this, infinite oneness and various incarnations, infinite unity and harmony and various expressions, both and. And I stand in this place of being homo conscious and live, move, and have my beingness from this new place of awakened enlightenment, embodied radical interconnectivity, mindful, loving, compassionate relationships where I add to life. I add to the joy and the belonging and the being of presence in, through, and as all that we are right here and right now. And I breathe. And I step forward from this new way of appearing, this new way of expressing, understanding that the whole of spiritual life, community, connection, relationship. That's what is so. And so it is. Amen. And so it is. Much love and appreciation, everyone. Blessings. See you in March. And remember, first Sunday of each month is our fellowship Sunday. So keep that in mind as you schedule for next week. But I will either see you in any of our gatherings during the week, or I will see you here next Sunday. Remember, click like on the video, subscribe if you have not done so yet, hit the bell for alerts regarding when new things are posted, and share with others so that we collectively as community can do the work of transformation, the essence of what it means to be homo conscious, and create a world that works for all. Love, appreciation, and blessings.